The Ottoman Empire was a vast, powerful Islamic empire lasting over 600 years. Founded by Osman I in Anatolia, it controlled parts of Southeast Europe, West Asia, and North Africa at its peak. While officially a Muslim state, it was a multi-religious state that was quite progressive. Non-Muslim communities had some autonomy under their own religious laws in exchange for loyalty and taxes. Common beliefs about women varied by social class and time period, but generally emphasized domesticity, modesty, and family honor, while still affording women significant legal rights under Islamic law, such as the ability to own property and pursue divorce. But one thing they were not allowed to do was rule outright, until the rise of Hurrem Sultan, also known as Roxolana. She would bring in the era of the Sultanate of Women, where the wives and mothers of the sultans of the Ottoman Empire held immense political power and influence for the next 160 years. Hi guys, welcome to my channel, Women in History. You can call me E. Here I highlight a woman or group of women who have made a difference in their society, community, history, or have accomplished something that was very challenging. Today, we are looking at the era of the Sultanate of Women in the Ottoman Empire. The women who made up this era began as slaves, but due to their growing power and influence, they were able to influence Ottoman politics, military campaigns, and make government decisions, and a couple even were able to act as de facto leaders as regents. So, without further ado, let's learn more about these incredible women who were able to operate outside of tradition in a very patriarchal society and culture. The era of the Sultanate of Women began with the chief consort and legal wife of Ottoman Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent. Presumably born in Ruthenia to a Ruthenian Orthodox family, Hurrem Sultan, also known as Roxolana, was captured by Crimean Tatars during a slave raid and eventually taken via the Crimean trade to Constantinople, the Ottoman capital. Now, to note, most concubines of the Sultanate were of slave origin, since the traditional idea of marriage was considered inappropriate for the Sultan, who was not expected to have any personal allegiances beyond his governmental role. Hurrem was described as having strawberry blonde hair, curvy, short, and a bit plump. She had very pale skin, freckles, and one of Suleiman's poems mentions that she had a beauty mark. Hurrem was a gift from the Crimean Khan to Suleiman for his coronation, so we can assume that she was no ordinary beauty for her time, or she wouldn't have been sent to the Sultan. She entered the imperial harem and rose through the ranks to become the favorite concubine of Sultan Suleiman rather quickly. Now, this was no ordinary favoritism. The Sultan made several shocking moves to exhibit his love for Hurrem. Considering she was a slave, Suleiman broke Ottoman tradition in order to free and marry her as his legal wife. Previously, sultans had married only foreign free-born noblewomen, if at all. And even then, they usually reproduced through slave concubines. After having children with other concubines when he was a prince, Suleiman the Magnificent decided to devote himself to Hurrem when he became sultan and became completely monogamous. After the birth of their first child in 1521, Suleiman scandalized the harem by renouncing all other sexual partners and marrying off the other concubines to servitors and favorites. He even created a special title for her, Haseki Sultan, meaning chief consort or favorite of the Sultan. Hurrem remained in the Sultan's court for the rest of her life, enjoying an extremely loving and intimate relationship with her husband, and having at least 6 children with him, including the future Sultan Selim II, which makes her an ancestor of all the following sultans and present descendants of the Ottoman dynasty. Of Hurrem's 6 known children, 5 were male, again, breaking with one of the oldest Ottoman customs, according to which each concubine could only give the Sultan 1 male child to maintain a balance of power between the various women. So we know Hurrem Sultan, or Roxlana, was favored, but how did that translate into power or influence? Well, correspondence between Suleiman and Hurrem, which didn't become available until the 19th century, along with Suleiman's own diaries, confirmed her status as the Sultan's most trusted confidant and advisor. During his frequent absences, they exchanged passionate love letters in which Hurrem also included political information and warned of political uprisings. She also played an active role in the affairs of the empire and even intervened in affairs between the empire and her former home, apparently helping Poland attain its privileged diplomatic status. She took an active role in diplomatic relationships by sending diplomatic letters accompanied by personally embroidered articles. She also patronized major public works, including the Haseki Sultan Complex and the Hurrem Sultan Bathhouse. Again, this was unheard of because high-ranking women of her time were often strictly regulated to the harem, and it was considered unseemly for them to openly take part in politics. In fact, there was supposed to be a separation between the harem and the government. Hurrem died in April 1558 in Constantinople and was buried in an elegant and beautifully adorned mausoleum adjacent to the site where her husband would join her 8 years later, in another mausoleum within the Grand Süleymani Mosque complex in Istanbul.
Kösem Sultan.
Kösem Sultan, born in Tinos, was the most powerful and highest-ranking woman in the history of the Ottoman Empire. She was the most trusted advisor of Sultan Ahmed I and his Haseki Sultan. Kösem, not her birth name, was born around 1589. It is believed that she was Greek, from Tinos or Bosnian. In 1604, at the age of 14 or 15, she was kidnapped by Ottoman raiders and bought as a slave in Bosnia by the Governor-General of the Bosnia Eyalet. She was a tall, slender, and appealing girl due to her fresh complexion and the deep brown of her eyes. Her beauty and intelligence were noticed by the head eunuch of Sultan Ahmed's first court, who sent her to Constantinople to join a group of other slave girls marked by their striking appearance or intelligence to be trained in the harem of Sultan Ahmed I as an imperial court lady, i.e. a slave concubine. In the harem, she was taught Islam, theology, mathematics, embroidery, singing, music, and literature. Ahmed was captivated by her beauty and intelligence, and in 1605, she became his Haseki. Kösem rose to prominence early in Ahmed's reign due to a series of changes to the hierarchy of the imperial harem. Safiye Sultan, Ahmed's once powerful grandmother and manager of the harem, was deprived of her power and banished to the Old Palace in January of 1604. And Handan Sultan, Ahmed's mother, and Valid Sultan died in November of the following year. These two vacancies allowed Qassam to rise to the top of the imperial harem hierarchy rather quickly. She was active in the Ottoman administration as the Sultan's consort. Historians credit her with persuading him to spare the life of his younger half-brother, who eventually became Mustafa I, thus putting an end to the centuries-old practice of fratricide in the Ottoman Empire. She exerted considerable influence over Sultan Ahmed, and it's probable that her efforts on keeping his half-brother Mustafa alive contributed to the transition from a system of succession based on primogeniture, where the firstborn son inherits, to one based on agnatic seniority, where inheritance is on the father's side. So it would go father, father's brother, etc., until we get to the firstborn son. After Ahmed's death in 1617, she was instrumental in his brother Mustafa's enthronement. After he was deposed, twice, she became regent 3 times. First, during the minority of her son Murad IV from 1623 to 1632. Second, during the unstable reign of Ibrahim. And third, during the early reign of her grandson, Mehmed IV, from 1648 until she was assassinated on September 2nd, 1651. Qassam wielded unparalleled political power and influence over the empire's foreign and domestic policies, which garnered her many enemies. Qassem's status and influence were facilitated by her astute grasp of Ottoman politics and the large number of children she bore. Her sons and grandson required her regency, and her daughters' marriages to prominent statesmen provided her with allies in the government. Despite being popular with the common citizens and esteemed by the ruling elite, some historians openly attribute Qassam as having a role in the demise of the Ottoman Empire, as her push for certain unsuccessful military campaigns led to a financial crisis in the empire. Eventually, Qassam sought to overthrow her grandson Mehmed IV, particularly because his powerful mother, Turan Sultan, proved a challenge to Qassem's influence. Turan caught wind of this plan and sent her entourage to strangle Qassam. Her death was not easy, and she almost escaped twice. In the end, it was reported that she fought so hard that blood from her ears and nose stained her assassin's clothes as she was being strangled. Qassam was renowned for her charity, using her wealth to build mosques, fountains, and providing dowries for poor girls, whether they were Muslim or Christian. Every year in the Islamic month of Rajab, she would leave the palace in disguise to arrange the release of imprisoned debtors and other fit offenders by paying their debts or compensation for their crimes. She also visited hospitals, mosques, and schools to boost her popularity and established soup kitchens capable of feeding nearly all of Constantinople's starving people. In Egypt, she financed irrigation works from the Nile into Cairo. These are just a few of her many charitable works. She did significantly more, so she was very beloved by the people. It's just she was a bit vicious politically.
Turhan Sultan.
Turan was rumored to be of Russian origin, born in 1627 and captured at the age of 12 during the Crimean Nogai slave raids in Eastern Europe. She was brought up in the harem and received her palace education under the supervision of Atike Sultan, Kosam's daughter, but was personally raised by Kosam in order to present her as a concubine to her son as soon as possible. Kosam's plan was for Turan to be the next Valid Sultan, so she taught her not only the intricacies of the harem, but also the politics of the state. Unlike other Hasekis, Turan did not get the Haseki title through being favored. After the only surviving Ottoman Shehzad Ibrahim ascended the throne, Turan became the first to cross the finish line in the race to give the new sultan a son. After giving birth to her first heir, Turan received the title of Chief Haseki. However, this title didn't carry much weight due to Ibrahim's excessive lust for women and the unlimited power in the harem of Kosam Sultan. Ibrahim actually ignored Turan for most of his reign. According to the historians of the time, Sultan Ibrahim fell in love with a woman who came to the harem with her child to nurse Shehzad Mehmed, Turan's first child. One day, when they were chatting lovingly in Mermerlik, the fourth courtyard of Topkapi, the harem, Turan caught them. She reminded the Sultan, who had caressed the son of the woman, that he should treat his own Shehzad with kindness. The Sultan, angry with Turan, threw Mehmed into a marble pool. Kosam Sultan intervened in the situation and eventually threw the wet nurse out of the palace. So it was evident to all that Ibrahim loved the wet nurse's child more than Shehzad Mehmed and wanted to kill his own son by throwing him into the pool. Whether that was a casual desire or a serious desire, it was clear his first heir and Turan were not favored. It was also noted that at first Turan was jealous of the Sultan for other women, but over time, when Ibrahim completely switched to other concubines and the Haseki was left to her own devices, she came to terms with her position. In addition to Turan, Ibrahim had 7 more Hasekis. Now, remember, this title is supposed to be reserved for your favorite concubine, but he had 7 and many simple concubines on top of that. Moreover, until his marriage to Humasa Sultan, it was not the chief Haseki Turan who enjoyed the Sultan's special favor, but the mother of Ibrahim's second son, Suleiman, who is supposed to have been Ibrahim's favorite son. On August 8, 1648, Ibrahim was dethroned, in part due to his excessive womanizing, because remember, the Sultan was supposed to prioritize state affairs first, not be obsessed with the harem. Several days later, he was strangled. Now, this should have been the beginning of Turan's real power, since her son would now ascend the throne. But that was not the case. With Mehmed's ascendancy, the position of the lead sultan, mother of the reigning sultan, should have gone to Turan. However, Turan was overlooked due to her youth and inexperience. Instead, the Sultan's grandmother and the previous Valid Sultan, Kosam Sultan, was reinstated to this high position. Turan did not take losing this position lightly, as she was very ambitious herself. And honestly, I'm with her. After putting up with a crappy husband for years, now you're going to tell me that I can't have the promotion that I've been training for. I was kidnapped for. I mean, I've been dealing with this man's lack of attention to me and my son, despite my son being the first heir. And it's time for me to get promoted, and you're telling me, nah, yeah, we've been training you for 8 years, but actually we don't think you're qualified. I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm with Saran. All right, heads are gonna have to roll, because what do you even mean? And that's exactly what Tehran decided. She decided that Qasem needed to go. In her struggle to become the lead sultan, Tehran was supported by the chief black eunuch in her household and the Grand Vizier, while Qasem was supported by the Janissary Corps, the elite military troop of the Sultan. Although Qasem's position as Valid was seen as the best for the government, the people resented the influence of the Janissaries on the government. Eventually, Qasem planned to dethrone Mehmed and replace him with Shehzad Suleiman, the favored son of the former Sultan Ibrahim, because Tehran kept challenging her. Suleiman's mother, Salisha Dilasub, was more easily controlled. So even though Qasem didn't have anything particular against her grandson, it just pretty much was like, don't talk back to me. Your mother keeps talking back to me, so I need to get rid of her. If I want to get rid of her, I've got to get rid of you. So that was it. It was nothing personal to her. She just didn't want anyone challenging her authority. Even though that's what she raised Tehran to be able to do, to be able to make decisions as the lead sultan. But now Qasem was like, nah, I'm still alive. I'm still kicking. I've taken over twice now. What do I need this girl for anymore? So Tehran caught wind of Qasem's plan to remove her son and decided that Qasem had to die. On the night of September 2nd, 1651, Qasem Sultan was murdered 3 years after becoming regent for Mehmed. Tehran served as official regent of the Ottoman Empire from 1651 to 1656, and as de facto ruler of the empire for over 3 decades. Tehran and Qasem Sultan are the only 2 women in Ottoman history to be regarded as official regents and have supreme control over the Ottoman Empire. As far as Sultan Mehmed, he deferred greatly to his mother. She was deeply loved and respected by her son. She would even accompany him to important meetings and on several occasions spoke from behind her curtained sitting place. Unlike Qasem Sultan, she always consulted ministers and viziers for making decisions and implementing them for better administration, and also due to her inexperience, as she was only 24 years old when she assumed the position of regent. As regent, she was frequently involved in state affairs. She headed the imperial council, took the decisions of the state, controlled the treasury and appointments of all statesmen, implemented laws and signed documents, and headed the Ottoman army and military campaigns, particularly during the Kret campaign. When she became the lead sultan, when Mehmed was finally old enough to assume control, she continued to work hard to stabilize the political scene of the Ottoman Empire. She established a wide intelligence network, was interested in every event, and checked the soldiers' salaries, checked the progress of campaigns, and even whether the shipyard was running smoothly. It can be said that Tehran Sultan was one of the most powerful Valid sultans of the Ottoman Empire, through her 164 letters currently in Topkapi Palace. Sultan Mehmed was considered a warrior king, as he was often gone on military campaigns to reclaim and strengthen territories. Turan spent large amounts of money on the reconstruction and fortification of key military strongholds, and when Mehmed IV returned from a successful military campaign, Turan arranged a royal procession to retrace his warpath and share in the glory of his victory. She would often visit Mehmed wherever he was stationed to provide support, and Mehmed IV would even request her to be brought to him in some instances. When Güneş Sultan, Mehmed IV's Haseki, attempted to have her husband's brothers Suleiman II and Ahmed II strangled after his son Mustafa was born, Turan prevented these attempted murders. Turan is the youngest woman to ever become Valid Sultan and remain as the longest serving Valid Sultan in the Ottoman history for over 35 years, suppressing even the reigns of many Ottoman sultans. She was also the youngest woman to ever assume the position of regent in Ottoman and in Islamic history.
Gulnush Sultan.
Emetullah Rabia Gulnush Sultan was the chief consort of Ottoman Sultan Mehmed IV from 1664 to 1687. As well as the mother of Ottoman Sultans Mustafa II and Ahmed III, and the Valid Sultan of the Ottoman Empire from 1695 to 1715. She is considered to be the last powerful imperial consort and Valid Sultan, thus ending the era of the Sultanate of Women. Gulnush was captured as a very young girl in Rethymno in 1645 during the Cretan War and sent as a slave to Constantinople. She was renamed Emetullah Rabia Gulnush and was given a thoroughly Ottoman education in the harem department of Topkapi Palace and soon attracted the attention of the Sultan, Mehmed IV, and became his concubine. Mehmed was famous for his hunting expeditions in the Balkans and used to take Gulnush, his favorite, to these expeditions. She was described as a curvy woman with long black curly hair. They had at least 6 children. Her participation in male-specific activities such as hunting and campaigns, thanks to her husband's affection for her, gave her advantages unique to male members of the dynasty. She was aware of the political developments of the time. As Haseki Sultan, she participated in the Polish War of 1672 and 1673, along with Mehmed IV and Hatice Turan Sultan. Similarly, in 1682, during the Second Siege of Vienna, she joined the regiment when they went to Belgrade. Her harem journey, which began as a female slave, turned out to be more advantageous for her as she prioritized service to the dynasty and embraced masculine roles. Gulnush was known to be ruthless. She attempted to have her husband's brothers strangled after she gave birth to her firstborn Mustafa, but Mehmed's mother, Turan Sultan, hindered these attempted murders. Gulnush also killed another concubine that Sultan Mehmed became enamored with after her addition to the harem. Gulnush Sultan's participation in the campaigns during her 27-year Haseki period and her knowledge of political developments, her long Haseki period together with Turan Sultan and the mother of Prince Mustafa and Prince Ahmed, and her financial power virtually prepared her for the institution of Valid Sultan. In other words, she was in a great position financially, mentally, socially, and politically to assume power. She became the lead in 1695 when her elder son Mustafa II became the Sultan. She held the position during the reign of two sons. When Mustafa II was dethroned in 1703, the populace blamed Gulnuz for his preference for Edirne over Constantinople as a place of residence, and for the general confusion of life in the capital. In 1703, she was asked to confirm and approve of the succession of her other son, Ahmed III, to the throne, which she also did. Both her sons were quite loyal to her. Ahmed III made political appointments based on her recommendations. In 1704, when Gulnuz Sultan wanted to appoint her chief eunuch, Uzan Suleiman Aga, as the chief black eunuch of the entire imperial harem, the Grand Vizier appeared to the Sultan and warned him, "This person is already involved in the affairs of the Sultanate in her current position. If he becomes the Kizaga, girls is Aga, I will not be able to reconcile or communicate with him. Independence will pass from me to him." Uzan was appointed as the chief black eunuch. The Grand Vizier was also removed from the Grand Viziership on September 28, 1704, and someone else was appointed in his place. So I guess the Sultan didn't take his advice after all. This incident proves the influence Gulnuz Sultan had over her son, while it also demonstrates Ahmed III's loyalty to his mother. Gulnuz Sultan's influence, particularly in the appointment of Grand Vizier, can be seen in the accounts of period historians and archival documents. She is also attributed to having advised her son to the war with Russia in 1711. Like many Hasekis and Valid sultans before her, Gulnuz undertook architectural projects. Among Gulnuz's projects was a complex of buildings which included a mosque, soup kitchen, school, fountain and tomb, built in Üsküdar. She also sponsored the transformation of a church in Galata into a mosque and building of 5 fountains, with which clean water was finally made available to the area. Gulnuz Sultan died on November 6, 1715 at the age of 72 or 73. Again, because she was a slave brought in, we're not sure of her exact date of birth. In Istanbul, during the reign of her son Ahmed III, just before the start of the era of prosperity and peace called the Tulip Era by the Turkish historians. As previously mentioned, Gulnuz was the last Haseki and Valid Sultan to have significant power in the Ottoman Empire. In total, there were 9 Hasekis with power during the Sultanate of Women. And of course, today I've only covered 4 of them, the most major that I thought. But there were 9 in total. Now, to note, this era was not without opposition. In 1582, a Grand Vizier openly expressed his anger at a Valid Sultan's presence in the council. In 1599, there was complaints about the Valid Sultan's involvement in government affairs, especially in appointments and dismissals. Many contemporary foreign ambassadors reported that those wanting to do business with the Ottoman Empire needed to approach the Sultan's mother before anyone else, which greatly angered some viziers who were still insistent on considering them as slaves without power. After Gulnuz's death, the harem returned to a more traditional role, with no further involvement in the government. But the fact that these women were able to amass such power, influence, favor, and the loyalty of their sons in such a patriarchal society was nothing short of amazing. Now, I've only briefly outlined some of the key figures in this era, but I definitely encourage you to do some research on them on your own because I was not able to include everything while still making this video concise. But I can assure you, the more you learn about these women, the more you'll be impressed, which is why they are featured today here on Women in History. If you learned something new, please leave a like and consider a subscribe. Also, if you know something about our topic today, please consider sharing in the chat. This is a place for knowledge and discussion. And until next time, peace.